Hey guys, and welcome back to another video for the Porsche Cup car here, week 6 at Road America. My name's Matt Emery with Coach Dave Academy, also with Veloce Vexed. So let's get into the hot lap firstly. Okay then guys, so let's get into the hot lap guide then for week 6 at Road America in the Porsche Cup car. Now your hot lap really starts at the final corner, especially in qualifying. Obviously important to get a good exit in a race as well. But yeah, really important as you've got that long run up the pit straight towards turn 1. So easy to lose time if you don't get a good exit. So for qualifying, heading flat out up the hill. Obviously making sure you're getting that good exit that I mentioned. And across the line to start your lap. Obviously making sure we stick to the left hand side to open up turn 1 as much as we can. And then you spot your braking mark. It's generally just after these 4 cones. I believe it's about 100 meters before the corner. You're just looking to brake just about in line with this this white line here. Quite a lot of brake pressure initially. And you also notice I'm turning in quite early here as well. So I'm turning in early, apexing quite early. And what you'll find is that this curb actually sort of drags your car around and helps with the rotation of the car. Yeah, so braking just after the apexing early, using all of the curb on the inside and all of the curb on the exit as well. Now, if you are going to use the exit curb like I did, just be really careful because you can get an off track if you go too wide. And also coming back onto the curb and onto the track here as well. There is an off track there, so just be careful you're not hitting the grass too much. You see I got on it slightly, but any more than that, I think it'll be an off track, so just be careful. Make sure you look out for that. But I'll play that through for you once more. Braking nice and hard, trail braking as well. You notice I've still got brake on even at this part of the corner, just to make sure you got that nose planted, to make sure you get a bit more of that front downforce, sorry. Onto the power as early as you can, and as I said, just being careful with the off track. Then you're plunging back down the hill towards turn 2. You can brake a bit later for this corner than turn 1, just as obviously you've got less speed that you're carrying into the corner. Again, you're braking just about in line with this board here. So there's a slight line on the track, but you can't see it too well. But that's your general braking point. Again, a lot of brake pressure. Again, really important to use this inside curb as it's got a slight bit of camber. You can't really see it from this angle, but there's a bit of camber you can use to rotate the car. So you're on that for most of the curve, to be honest. And then on the throttle as early as you can. So you notice I'm about full throttle even before we reach the end of the curb. Using all of the exit curb as well. And again, similar to turn one, just be careful you're not getting off track for using the grass here. You can use a slight bit there, like I did, sort of this brownie sort of patch there, but just be careful of the grass because you will pick up an off track. Then we head back onto another straight here, heading back down towards turn 3, I believe. Probably the trickiest braking zone on the track, just as it's downhill and you've got a lot of speeds, over 250 k's as we head down the hill. You're braking just in the middle of these two marker boards here, so the 4 and the 3. Braking about there, so that's sort of your reference point where the green goes to the more sort of gravelly section. So you're slamming on the brakes just about there. Now just be careful of putting too much pressure on. You see I sort of cap at about 90% just to avoid locking up. And if you are struggling with front locking, then obviously move your brake bias to the back slightly. And obviously that's a reduction in percentage. So you always want to go down a percentage to put the brakes to the rear. So yeah, just be really careful with locking up on this. You'll also notice once this gravel sort of fades out and goes into tarmac, I'm using a bit of this section of the track and the curb on the entry just to open up the corner as much as possible. And then you're just trying to get the best exit that you can here. So just your typical racing line, just apexing in the middle of the corner, and then on the throttle as early as you can. Again, using all of the track, you can use all of this black curb. As long as you're not on the gravel or the grass, you're absolutely fine. And then you go back up the hill. Now this section of the track's quite difficult as it's a completely blind corner, very difficult to spot where to turn in and where to brake. And also as you go over the hill, the car goes light slightly. So when it compresses back down, it's very easy to lock up your front left tyre. So just be careful, you make sure you're not putting too much brake pressure on. So you notice here I'm only going about 50% on the brakes just to make sure I'm not locking up. You also want to turn in slightly earlier than you think, so I'm generally turning in just as I go under the bridge. So see, I'm already starting to turn, and then on the apex getting all that lock on as well. Again, using all of the apex curb just helps rotate, and that's a general rule for this circuit in general. All of the exit curb as well. Again, be careful not to get off track there. As normal, one wheel's fine, as you can see there, but any more than that, you're getting off track. Then you open up the next near flat out right-hander, a slight lift here. If you're on cold tyres, you can brake, but generally it's just a slight lift. You want to turn in quite early as well. You notice I'm actually half on the grass here as well, but you can get away with that completely fine. There's no off track for that, and it also helps with rotation as well. So just make sure you're using all of the track available to you. And then all of the exit curb as well. Now, there is something to note here. This section of grass, there's quite a nasty bump, which if you catch, can unsettle the car quite a lot. You might even be able to get damage from it, but don't quote me on that, I'm not sure. But either way, just avoid this section of the track. Make sure you're back on the tarmac or the curb by the end of it. Just to make sure you avoid that bump, sorry. Now we head into the 90-degree left before the carousel. Now this braking zone is very tricky as well. Probably the joint, I know I changed my mind, probably the joint hardest braking zone on the track. And it doesn't look it, but it is very tricky because there is a horrible bump somewhere along this line here. Because obviously you naturally want to open up the corner as much as possible. But what I found was if you're all the way to the right for the whole way, while you're braking, you get a horrible lock-up and then just go straight on. So just be really careful with your brake pressure and make sure you avoid the bump, which is on the right-hand side. So I think, yeah, so it's generally before, I can't actually see it on this part of the track. It's really hard to see, but it is there. I generally wouldn't go too far right before this line here and then open up the corner once you get further towards the apex. Generally stay away from this curb as well, just as it's quite late in the corner to use. and then your apexing using all of the apex curb. Again, there's a nice bit of cam you can use just about here, which rotates the car for you. On the throttle as early as you can. Bit of a tank slap on the exit there, but nothing to worry about too much. You don't really need to use this part of the track here. Just the way the nature of the corner, you don't really need to use too much exit curb. And then back over to the left-hand side for the carousel. Now, this is quite a fun corner in most cars, but in this car, it's not very fun, I'll be honest with you. You haven't got much front downforce to work with. You have a lot of understeer in this car. So it's more of a waiting game because it's a full 180, really. So I found it best to just take full throttle into the corner, stick to the inside pretty much throughout the whole corner. You haven't got too much to work with in terms of front downforce. So if you plunge, take a lot more entry speed and go really wide, you then are gonna have to scrub off loads of minimum speed, put a load of lock on, and then get the exit. Whereas I found it was just better to carry a minimum speed, higher minimum speed, and take the route closest to the white line pretty much. So you notice I'm full throttle into the corner, quite a lot of lock on. I'm also Mickey Mousing with the throttle and the brake a bit, just to sort of adjust to how the car's feeling. If I'm feeling a bit of oversteer, obviously react to that. If you're feeling a bit of understeer, put on the brakes slightly as well. So it's really what you feel with the car. And you see I've got a load of lock on there. The car's just not biting, just being really patient. Coming off the throttle as well. And then finally, once I feel it grip up and feel the front bites, putting the throttle on, and then trying to go full throttle really. So I do go full throttle for a slight minute there, and then I have to come back off it just because I can feel the car understeering wide. But then really, once you get to this midpoint of this curb, you should be flat out, just because you want to be able to carry the exit speed into the final section of the lap. You can use all of this exit curb as well, just to make sure you're carrying that exit speed. Then for this near flat right-hander, you just want to make sure you open it up as much as you can to make sure you're not scrubbing the speed off. This will depend on how you want to drive the car, but I actually stamp just a dab of brake just to get the front of the car into the corner, and then completely flat through the apex, obviously carrying that minimum speed, using a bit of grass as well on the exit. I'll just play that through for you once more. So just as I turn in, I'm using, you can see, literally about 10-15% of brake just to get the front into the corner, then back onto the throttle, back to full throttle there, using all of the exit as well. And then actually also notice I'm sticking it slightly to the left here just to take the line of least resistance as well. And actually there's no off track for that either, so you can use a slight bit of grass in line with that bit there, and you won't get an off track for that, so that's fine. But yeah, line of least resistance, sticking it to the left as well, and heading into another heavy braking zone. Now you want to brake in line with this this number 4 here on the left hand side. Maybe actually slightly before. It's actually a very tricky braking zone to get right, because you have to brake earlier than you think. Because most of the time you're around getting to this point, you're turning and braking. So you don't want to have too much pressure on, and if you have too much, you're going to lock up. Also very important to get a good exit up the hill here as well. So you're braking, just before the number 4 on the left hand side. Nice bit of trail braking, using all of the curb as well on the apex. Again, you want this apex quite early, just to make sure you can get on the throttle as early as you can and use all of the exit curb. And obviously, this is completely fine to use as well, this black curb here. As long as you get it back over enough onto the curb here. There's no off track for that. Obviously, if you go too far, there will be an off track, so just be careful. You then head back up the hill. You want to use all of this curb on the entry, just to open up this corner as much as you can. And then a slight lift, using all of the apex curb, all of the exit as well. I was, really pushing this section of the lap. You have to be quite ballsy with that section, especially this section, because there's a horrible bump as well in this curb, You can also go on the grass slightly as well. And the cars don't mind too much, but just be careful you're not going too far, getting off track. And then get it back across for the final corner. Now this one's actually another very tricky braking zone because you're turning, obviously coming back over to the left, and then you're starting to turn right as the car sort of heads towards the apex. And the way the turn goes in general, you're sort of always turning while braking. So you'll notice I've still got a bit of lock on there, just slightly while I'm braking. So you're not wanting to brake too much harder than 50%. And it's just a matter of waiting, just being patient, waiting for that right moment to turn in, holding the trail brake as well. And then you're looking to turn in just about after this white line here. Your sort of reference for the actual corner when you're in the cockpit is just, obviously it depends on your field of view and things, but for me it was the windscreen wiper being in line with the curb, just about there. It's quite hard to. I'm not gonna lie, it's quite a difficult corner to get right in general. So just make sure you practice that. And obviously, it's really important, especially if you're going for an overtake, especially in qualifying. Really important to get a good exit, as I mentioned earlier. But yeah, not braking too much harder than 50%. Just trail braking into the corner, and then back on full throttle as early as you can. And not an issue at all to use all of this exit curb as long as you get back onto the track in time. But yeah, that completes a lap of the Road America circuit. I hope that was useful for you guys. So that was the hot lap guide then for the Road America circuit here for week 6 in the Porsche Cup car. I hope that was useful for you guys and you learned a few useful tips and tricks. I will see you guys next week for week 7. Obviously, if you've got any questions, head over to the Discord. Obviously, make sure you check out all the latest data packs for week 6 over at CoachDaveAcademy.com. But yeah, I've been Matt Emery with Veloce Vex, and I will see you next week for week 7. So take care, guys.